Welcome to Subramani. Not very long ago, in a world list of 47 decacons, which means they had a net worth or valuation over 10 billion US dollars, 10 billion US dollars, 47 of them. India had 5. Where have you seen India having such a big market share in anything which is so good, right? 10%. We don't have 10% of any of these big market indicators. We don't have 10%. Which were the ones which we were very proud of? There was Flipkart, there was Nykaa, there was Zomato was not there, Swiggy, Paytm, right, and of course Byjus, right. So these were the 5 who were there, and it was publicly featured. Sometime I think even in March of this year, they were publicly featured as great achievers, and we of course had very many unicorns with valuation of more than 1 billion US dollars, and many of them were recognized. They were achievers, they were doing things like that. But then what went wrong? What went wrong is something which is you have to go back and see in time, that very many companies do wrong things, but if you can get away with it for a long period of time with having your own money, then nobody will point out fingers at you, right? So it's a very simple learning. If you want to do business, do it with your own money. It does not matter whether you call it VC funding and therefore equity, or whether it is public borrowing. So whether you are an Anil Ambani or Byjus Ravindran, you can get away with very many things that you did, right? Nobody ever bothered talking about the valuation of Reliance Power. The issue was terribly priced, maybe definitely oversubscribed, and then it crashed all the way from 450 rupees issue price or somewhat equivalent to maybe 8-9 rupees today. I do not know what is the price. I'm not even getting into it. But you get into trouble only when you run out of money. If Byjus had got away with getting another $1 billion, they would have hidden this for a longer period, and the same VCs would have sung praises and taken the company public and then given it an exit. That is exactly what we did in Paytm. We are not cribbing about Paytm at all, because all the big, rich, powerful VCs got an exit. Ditto for Nykaa. The rich big people got an exit. Who is stuck is the small guy. Byjus luckily was not listed. So the guys who created the big mess are the same people who have got called, and they are now saying, oh, Byjus did this was wrong and that was wrong. What did Byjus do in sales which is not done by the financial service industry, right? Every insurance company does things which are wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong, but they are well funded. They are not being called out, right? So suddenly you find a notice saying 2,500 crores GST dues from one insurance company, 800 due from another company, right? But they are not VC funded, so they don't have to worry. They don't have to worry what will happen. So moral of the story for young entrepreneurs is, if you are VC funded and you are not sure if one VC walks out, what will happen, better not grow unless you are willing to let the company go out of your hand because you have made so much money. That's a completely different situation. Because one director could leave you because you did not recruit enough number of transgenders. Remember, it's a wokish world. And if he walks out or if she walks out saying, oh, they have to recruit more transgenders or anything like that, you have a wokish VC from UK or US or Europe or US, they could do that. And once he or she walks out, they'll take another friend along, and then your auditor walks out. That's the end of your valuation game. It's over, right? So can you do wrong things? Yes, provided you have your own money. As long as you have your own money. Let me give you an example. I met one lady who had walked into a PSU bank branch. Maybe she was earning about 20,000 rupees. She was a housemaid. She and her daughter, for her daughter's wedding, had bought saris worth about 30,000 or 40,000 rupees, which was bought on EMI. Now nobody tells you that you cannot buy things on EMI, so she bought on EMI and she had issued post dated checks. Her post dated checks added up to a nice big sum, much more than the cost of the sari or saris, I would think. The finance company had presented all the checks. Many of the checks had bounced, or rather a few of those checks had bounced. They had first of all taken extra checks saying in case this bounces we will present it, and the mess up was they had presented all the checks, they had collected more than their equivalent, and when the checks bounced, the bank was charging them bouncing charges and things like that, and her money was completely finished. So I think that 30,000 rupees sari must have cost her not less than 60,000 rupees, because that is what they did. However, it's a big company, famous company. They can fund anything that you want at any rate that you want, provided you borrow it for a long enough a period. But they will never be called out because they have adequate money of their own. They are being praised, they are being tapped on their back saying, wow, you're doing a fantastic job, what awesome growth, right? Even if they have to hide things, they have enough money to hide things, so they will not be called out. Whereas Byjus got called out because maybe they were not making enough money, they were making expensive acquisitions. Those acquisitions were not justified. Now everybody knows that those acquisitions were not justified. However, when the company was being funded by the same set of people, you want 1 billion, you want 2 billion, we will give you, no problem. There was a fight among the VCs to give money. That was happening. So if Byjus had instead of trying to raise this 1 billion from VCs, if he had gone public and raised money from the public, he could have got away with all that he did and more by just hiding it in the balance sheet, right? Or hiding the balance sheet, hiding the P&L. That's what you do. And then when you get when the call comes that you are doing badly, it's no problem. Your share price has fallen from 800 to 150 rupees. Perfectly all right. The person holding the baby should not be the big strong VCs who have created the mess. So remember one thing, unless you can throw the VC out in a minute because you have some other sources of funding, or because you are now cash positive and you have enough money and you can afford to do a buyback, understand the risk of VC funding. Everything that you did, they will celebrate, you will get rewarded, you will be praised saying, wow, what fantastic market share, what fantastic sharp practices in sales. Everything will get appreciated, you will get praised to the sky, and then one day when you run out of money, people will say, oh, it was so obvious. Reliance should never have come out with an issue at 450. None of them told you that when they came out with an issue at 450. Byjus was celebrated, Nykaa was celebrated, Paytm was thought to be the best things in sliced bread, Swiggy is being celebrated, Zomato is being celebrated, right? So everybody gets celebrated, but you cannot run into bad practices and out of cash at the same time. If you have bad practices and you have enough cash to hide it, do it. Otherwise, be careful. We are talking about the failure of Byjus today, but in the VC circles, there was murmur of Byjus sales tactics, pressure tactics, putting pressure on kids, shaming them, all those things which they were doing. People had known that. I know bankers who rejected the Byjus account saying, we will not give you money because you don't have genuine sales. It's just sign-ups, right? Some land mafia people used to have that. They would sign up with a land development company, and the land development company would show that land as belonging to them, right? So it required some cleaning, and then you realize, oh, this was a very fine practice which they were doing, which you have to be very careful about. So Byjus was Byjus impressing me with what they were doing? Were they doing great? No. But are you trying to tell me that the VCs didn't know what was happening, the banks didn't know what was happening, the people didn't know what was happening? They all knew. They were all hoping that the music would continue and the parcel would not be in their hand when the music stops. I'm very surprised that whether it is Russell Drainstock or GV Ravishankar of Sequoia Capital or Vivian Shu of Shan or the two lawyers who quit or Deloitte, all of them knew what was happening for a very long period of time. But when the music stopped, they all wanted to bail out, and that left Byju Ravindran stuck with the baby. If he had done an IPO, he could have hidden it. That didn't happen. Why didn't these people call out when things were going wrong, really going wrong? Why doesn't anybody ever call out on the BFSI space saying this is not the way to sell mutual funds, this is not the way to sell life insurance, this is not the way to sell loans, right? Home loans, educational loans, everything is pushed down people's throat at ridiculous rates with lot of charges. There is some amazing amount of silence, right? How builder loans are sold, how flats are sold, how it is missold. I mean, you can see it, but at the same time, running out of money is a big crime. So don't run out of money when you are doing all these sharp practices, right? So Byjus was a really great story, fantastic learning, teaching, so and so happening. So look at the valuation, young boy, Byju, his name is Byju Ravindran, right? Very aggressive sales tactics. This is the way to go. All your salespeople know all this exactly. But when things go wrong and you don't have money to protect yourself and you can't raise $1 billion to throw at these people, you are in trouble. So if these people were, I'm actually very surprised that they did not take the company public, take their money out and then call, right? Very surprised, unless there was something more sinister to it. It is not just a business deal, something more sinister, I wouldn't know. But yes, Byjus got into trouble at the same time when they ran out of money. This in business is not allowed. When you run out of good business ideas, you should have enough money, preferably funded by the Aam Aadmi, who is happy to buy a share at 800 rupees and sell it at 150 saying, oh, I still book tax loss. So be careful, don't run out of money when you don't before doing an IPO. After you do an IPO, it's okay, at least you have taken your money out. The VC doesn't bother, he has sold his shares, so it doesn't really matter. It would be very interesting to see the Paytm list of shareholders now. Thank you.